Hey everyone. I recently watched through the Legion of Superheroes animated series, and it made me ask the question, why does no one talk about this show? Now, it's not the greatest superhero show, but it's actually pretty good. I'd put it on par with the original Teen Titans. I have an odd habit of bringing that show up, but I'd say it's a good comparison. For anyone who doesn't know, the Legion is a team of superheroes from the far future, and in this series, they go back in time to get Superman to help them fight some villains. However, they go back to when he was still living in Smallville before he'd taken up the Superman title, but bring him with them anyway. He stays with them in the future for all of the first season, since they would be able to bring him back to the exact time when they left. And he learns more about his powers and how to be a hero. This is inspired by the pre-Crisis on Infinite Earths Superman comics, which showed that Clark operated by the name of Superboy when he was a teenager, and that was when he first encountered the Legion. They don't call him Superboy in the series because of legal disputes over who owned the rights to that title, so instead they just call him Superman. Now, I've never been a big fan of the Legion before watching this. The majority of my exposure to them had been through a few Silver Age Superman comics they showed up in, and a couple random issues from their series, none of which really grabbed my attention. I didn't think they were bad characters or anything, just nothing I'd seen made me want to go out of my way to check out their stuff. But after watching this show, I'd say that's changed. The first season is pretty lighthearted. It's not dumbed down, but it's not really serious either. I think it gets more interesting in the second season, but the first season is pretty enjoyable for what it is. My only major issue would be that there are a couple things they set up but never pay off. Like this one character named Alexis, who I'm pretty sure is a descendant of Lex Luthor. She pretty much has Silver Age Lex's origin, and at the end of the episode they set her up like she's going to be a recurring villain, but the most they ever really do with her is one throwaway scene in the season finale, and that's it. There's another character they do this with named Drax, who comes from the Phantom Zone. They set up all the stuff that he was born in there, and he has these voices in his head, but at the end of the episode they just throw him back in the Phantom Zone, and that's it. He never shows up again. Other than those two, though, I didn't really have any major problems with Season 1. Then Season 2 jumps ahead a couple of years and has a more serious tone than the first. It's darker, but the dark tone is handled in a smart way. It's not like it suddenly becomes an entirely different show, it's just dealing with heavier stories. At the end of the first season, they brought Superman back to his time period, and in this one they go back and get him again, this time as an adult, so calling him Superman isn't as odd. They also introduce a clone of him named Kal-El, who is pretty much the New 52 version of Superman before the New 52 was a thing, only he's actually even edgier than that version. He was pretty interesting as his own character, and I kind of feel like he was a representation of what people who don't get Superman want him to be, so it was interesting to see him alongside the traditional version of the character. So now I'll talk about the characters of the series. I'm only going to cover the main ones, and the ones that stick out to me, since this show pretty much becomes Justice League Unlimited with its cast by the second season. First off, there's Superman, who's written as the classic version of the character, which I always appreciate. I hate when writers try to alter Superman into something he's not, instead of just embracing what a wonderful character he really is when done right. Next would be Lightning Lad, who's a jerk with a heart of gold. I really like that about his character. He can be hot-headed, blunt, and a straight-up dick, but underneath it all, he's shown to be a good guy. When it comes down to it, he does the right thing and can admit when he's wrong, and shows many times that he is a genuinely heroic person, like in one episode where he turns down joining another group of superpowered characters because of their cruel and selfish actions. Then there's Saturn Girl, who's a telepath and telekinetic, and one of the founding members of the Legion, along with Lightning Lad and Cosmic Boy. She and Lightning Lad kind of have a romantic subplot that never really pays off, though I know they get married in the comics, so there's that. Then there's Brainiac 5, who is a descendant of the original Brainiac, only he's good. He has a really good storyline in the second season about how some of the original Brainiac is still inside of him and is trying to take control, which leads to the finale of the series. Two other characters I thought were interesting were Phantom Girl and Timberwolf, who I thought kind of had a bit of a Wolverine and Kitty Pryde dynamic. Mostly because of one episode in the second season where Timberwolf gets into trouble and she tries to help him out. Phantom Girl's powers are kinda like Kitty's, and Timberwolf reminds me a bit of Wolverine, so that's what my mind went to in that episode. Another member of the team's main roster would be Bouncing Boy, whose name is pretty self-explanatory. He could turn into a ball and bounce around, which is actually more useful than it sounds. Also in the main roster from the first season is Triplicate Girl, who can split into 3 separate versions of herself. Now there's only 2 more characters that I want to bring up, the first of which would be Chameleon Boy. He's pretty much their Beast Boy, both in powers and personality. He was used pretty often in the second season, which is the exact opposite of the next character I'm going to bring up, which would be Dream Girl. I thought she was a pretty interesting character. Her power is that she can see the future in her dreams, and they can use those predictions to actually alter the future. They set up some stuff with her that in her past she had misused her powers. She would, be a bit of a fortune teller and at times would lie to people. Not to be malicious, but she often wouldn't see what people wanted her to. So they set up that the reason she's working with the Legion is because she wants to make up for all of that and put her powers to legitimately good use. I thought her whole story was pretty interesting, and it's unfortunate they didn't really use her in the series except the 1 episode. Not gonna lie, I thought her design was pretty cute too. The character named Dream Girl is Best Girl, how about that? So the last thing I'm going to talk about is the series ending, which unfortunately has a cliffhanger. The frustrating thing is that it didn't have to. There was initially an ending that pretty much wrapped things up, and I felt like it would have been a great place to cut it off. But they just kept it going for an extra scene that set up what was going to happen in the next season, so that was pretty aggravating. It got canceled prematurely because 4Kids took over the Kids WB slot, and I could turn this into a rant about 4Kids, but I'm not going to do that. Anyway, this seems to be a really bad habit superhero animated shows have. When they get canceled, they seem to always end on cliffhangers. Spectacular Spider-Man, the original Teen Titans, Young Justice, Spider-Man Unlimited, Spider-Man the New Animated Series, which I think that one was meant to be set in continuity with the Raimi films. And if that's the case, we know it all works out in Spider-Man 2, so whatever. But still, this is something that seems to always happen with these shows. Fortunately for Young Justice, though, it's coming back for a 3rd season, and I believe the original Teen Titans might be coming back too. But that will probably never happen for this show, and that really sucks. There was a lot more they could have done with this series, I think. And like I said, it's definitely made me more interested in the Legion of Superheroes. Overall, it's definitely worth checking out, just the only problem would be that one last scene in the final episode. So if you're a fan of superhero shows, check it out. If you're a Superman fan, it's worth checking out. And if you're a fan of the Legion, yeah, definitely check it out. So that's all I got to say. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time, and you have a good day.